What's the good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here. So after a promise-filled season that's gone completely down the drain, looking at our next head coach options, Joe Douglas is highly unlikely to return in his role. And that means we have to go out and get an entire new regime once again. And the New York Jets are so far gone with Woody Johnson butting in left and right, with the disaster that we've put on display this season, with players like Mike Williams immediately going out and having success and then calling out our would-be leader in Aaron Rodgers. You can imagine that not too many head coaches are excited about the Jets possibly being their first, if not redemption opportunity, coming back to the NFL. And I've mentioned that we might have to go outside of the box thinking wise when it comes to potential candidates that we can select. But this latest rumor it feels like it's too much. According to Frankie Vitz here, and he spoke about this on the New York Post, the New York Jets may be seriously considering Jon Gruden as a head coach, or it goes on to mention some kind of football operations president, something along the lines. And I remember chatting with somebody in one of the comments on my last video, one of the last videos about this. Can't remember his name. It's like Elheim something or another. I thought we had a president of football operations already. Nonetheless, though, the job must not be going well, right? Based on what we've been seeing. But when it comes to Jon Gruden, at face value, I know some people might see merit in it, right? A former Super Bowl winning head coach back with Tampa Bay in, 2001, I think 2002, something like that. Had an overall positive record, right? 117 to 112. But when you take a look at how his tenure ended with the Raiders, and I think that's really the biggest piece outside of football, just because of the amount of noise, the amount of attention it grabbed, and obviously the long-lasting effects of having something like this. And I say it because if you look at what's happening with Deshaun Watson, even if he was having success, I feel like you would still hear the rumblings of the massage issue. And not only that, it crept up again. And this, for Jon Gruden specifically, his situation is one where you can easily imagine some stuff that maybe got left out surfacing, or just additional details from what happened with them surfaced. And if you don't know, I'm referencing the email gate, if you want to call it that. There was a ton, and I do mean a ton, of homophobic, misogynistic, racist remarks via emails that he was exchanging with, I don't know, the Tampa Bay owner or something along those lines. And it got released. Not only that, after he resigned, which he felt like he was forced to, he slapped a lawsuit on the NFL, essentially advising that somebody release those details to force his termination. And when you want to get back into the football conversation, for the conspiracy theorist, I don't know, he had some kind of crazy contract, right? It was like 10 years, 140 million or something wild, right? But he did seem like he was turning the Raiders around, which is why I can see why somebody might be attracted to it, right? A former head coach, has the experience. We've seen him have semi-successful return to football, coaching the Raiders, and it really was a pretty massive undertaking for him, but it looked like he was getting things turned around. Had Derek Carr as his head, Jesus Christ, Derek Carr as his starting quarterback, when there was definitely a lot of question marks around him, and looked like he could be a guy that can get his career back on track. Obviously, he was also architecting the roster for that team, and while I don't think that was nearly as successful based on how the draft picks have turned out, the on-field product, you've seen players talking about it. You obviously seen the on-field product coming together. I think when he resigned, the Raiders were 3-2, but it really looked like they could have had a successful season that potentially culminated in a playoff push. So I think for all of the elements of what you would look for, as baseline requirements to be a head coach in New York. He fit those, and he probably also checked off some of the more important boxes when you think about the situation you have to walk into in New York, the media, obviously the fact that you have Woody Johnson as owner. He has a lot of input, a lot of say, so obviously make some of those boss decisions where he's not really giving the GM or the head coach options. He's forcing the issue there. Jon Gruden's a guy that would have a chip on his shoulder. He would have that level of prestige and reputation that would allow him to push back and say, you brought me in for a reason. I understand what I'm doing. I know how to get us there. Here's the vision. Let me do my job or I walk. So I don't know. It's a more interesting conversation than the generalities in which I'm kind of bringing this up about. I wouldn't personally want to see him either way. I just think the amount of drama walking in from the front, from the get-go, with how the media is going to jump back into the whole email gate situation, bring a lot of that up, want him to speak to it, and then you have to hope that you get some immediate relief and turnaround due to his expertise, due to his leadership, due to his coaching ability, which is also an old school hard, drill sergeant type mentality. And I don't know if a lot of these guys would be ready to respond to that, especially considering how many guys seem like they were willing to step up and really disappointed about Robert Saleh leaving. And those of us in the fandom, at least considering Robert Saleh to be a very soft coach that wasn't really getting anything done, right? So outside of the whole lawsuit situation and the whole email gate drama, I think perception-wise is also a pretty important thing to consider, because we've seen that derail a lot of head coaches, right? It's never always been just about football and the wins and losses with these coaches. It's the drama. It's Joe Benigno and Robert Saleh, it's Adam Gase and the eyeballs, right? It's Rex Ryan and the foot fetishes and all this other kind of stuff. With Jon Gruden, you look at recent stuff that he's been doing to try to stick around football, and I know he's been on TikTok and YouTube and stuff, and to be honest, his TikTok stuff looks crazy. I don't have it, but I've seen some of the stuff as I was researching this a bit, and it just looks a little crazy and looks a little bit wild, right? I'll be honest. But to kind of wrap everything up with a bow here, I wanted to, just detail out the actual quote that I've seen for you guys as it pertained to the actual source of the rumors surrounding this. So per Frankie Vitz, he said, I've heard Jon Gruden is a serious candidate to coach the Jets or maybe be president of football operations. He's got close ties to the Jets and Woody. Now, Jon Gruden is coming through a lawsuit with the NFL. The rest of that doesn't really matter, right? But what he goes on to say is essentially that he thinks the Jets hiring Jon Gruden would get Jon Gruden to therefore drop the lawsuit, and dominoes start to drop from there forth. If this actually ended up becoming a thing, right? It's not the worst case based on a resume alone. But if we're going to go any kind of route, I will probably strongly push to get him in somewhat of a more behind the scenes role, right? Make him the president of football operations, and let's see if he can help galvanize and organize a elite search to find somebody, right? I don't know what the respect level around the league looks like with a guy like Jon Gruden installed wherever you put him at. But I'd have to imagine there would be at least a heavy draw for the outward looking in people to say they're trying to hire some elite-minded football-type people to help correct course here. So let me know what you guys ultimately think. Jon Gruden, is this much of a debate for you guys? Are you seriously considering it or not? Or is this just part of the circus that we're going to see all off-season while we figure out who's going to actually become our next GM, our next head coach? And if we do add some important pieces like a president of operations in the front office, and I'll catch you guys again. Peace.